It's the 14th of February 2022. Welcome, everybody. Hope you had a good day. We got lots of news to get through tonight. We got a poll for everybody. Should Japan let independent experts visit the Fukushima nuclear meltdown? Because nobody independent has ever visited the nuclear meltdown. And so that tells you that they're not to be trusted, right? If you got nothing to hide, why are you keeping out the entire planet? Here's your coronavirus right there. Food from Japan. So they did release a virus, there's no doubt about it, but the idea was to cover up the radioactive fallout worldwide. UN team, which is the IAEA, a task force from the United Nations, the International Atomic Energy Agency, is not an agency, it's just a corporation, which is the military-industrial complex. The United Nations is 193 militaries. And they're going to check the water. Do you got any idea how crazy that statement is? A task force from the United Nations scumbags is in Japan to review the country's plan for releasing treated water. We'll challenge that at the end of it right now. So they claim they got 1,000 tanks. In 2013, they had 1,000 tanks. In 2014, they had 1,200 tanks. In 2017, they had 900 tanks. And in 2019, they had 1,000 tanks. And 2021, they still had 1,000 tanks. So 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,000 tanks in 2022, basically. Because that's what they say now. They still got 1,000 tanks. But they're filling the tanks up all day, every day, Dana. So that's obviously not true, right? UN team reviews Japan's plan. And the UN team, these are scumbags, they're goblins. These are degenerate bootlickers from the nuclear industry who got these positions because they're scumbags. Let me explain to you about their treated, filtered water, they claim. The REVA system and the ELP systems and the REVA is France's system. For the last 3 years, the system has been unused and kept out of operation. So for the first 3 years, all the way up till August, 3.5 years, August 2014, there was no filtration. Right, so this blows their story completely apart. TEPCO's unable to bring the contaminated water issues under control. There's also 2014, the Advanced Liquid Processing System, known as ELPS, has yet to function reliably. And the utility which operates the Daiichi plant, which was nationalized, is the Japanese government, promised to treat all contaminated water by March 2015. A goal it now emits will not be realized. And you can't play catch up. The reactors actually need, when they're normal, before they melt down, they need 4,500 tons a minute. So you can fill up all the tanks on site each day 6 times normally. So when they melt down, they need a lot more water. And there are certain parts of the site where we don't have full control because it's lethal radiation doses on the site. And it's not some parts, certain parts, it's much of the site at that point in 2014. So some of the numbers you look at is 100,000 becquerels, atomic decays per cubic centimeter. these are absurd numbers. When you scale it up to a liter, these are absurd numbers. But 100,000 becquerels, 100 million becquerels, is basically 100 million cancers if it's distributed out by the atom. Because that's what it takes to give you a autoimmune illness. Cancer is latent. TEPCO says the groundwater bypass operations not have an effect on Fukushima. So they were going to have a bypass from the mountains, the water coming down the mountains. They were going to pump it out to the sea around the reactors. That didn't work. They also claimed they were going to build a fence for $1 billion. And that didn't work. They also claimed the ice wall, which, of course, why wouldn't you build a real wall? Why would you build an ice wall? How literally stupid are you? You would build an ice wall. Literally, what kind of moron idea was it to build an ice wall? How literally stupid can you get that you would build an ice wall when you can just put down a wall and walk away? Because an ice wall has to be maintained constantly. TEPCO admits the ice wall will not stop the groundwater. Neither will a real wall. There's no bottom to it, right? Causes liquefaction, which is the site becomes very mushy of radioactive water. So very deadly site by doing that. And if you look at the aerial, so how they read radiation is they fly 1,000 feet over, and the radiation is pulsing. There's so much radiation they can measure it that way. So it really discredits the fact that they claim radiation is harmless when you can read it from 1,000 feet above. At 3,000 becquerels per square meter, they're only talking about iodine, for goodness sakes. The biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is curium isotopes. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And this model, of course, is not a very good model. I'll show you a better model. Here's an actual model of the radioactive fallout. This one here in particular is 468 hours. 468 hours. Let me just redo the math on 468 divided by 24 is 19 days. It's 19 days. I see Nerad Yilov had sent me some examples for t-shirts. I know Lori had mentioned that in the comments section, that she was really good at designing, and she was interested in also doing that. And right now I'm kind of, I'm still trying to figure out how to do everything, right? All of that help will come in advantage later for sure. Okay, so Algeria rights group to prosecute France for nuclear tests. They're going to take them to the ICC, the International Criminal Court. But look at the emblem on the International Criminal Court. That's United Nations emblem. I'll show it to you from their scumbag Wikipedia in a second. A human rights organization that defends victims of French nuclear tests in Algeria announced that it is preparing a judicial file to be submitted to the International Criminal Courts in response to France's failure for 60 years to respond to Algerians' repeated demands for compensation for the victims of nuclear bombs in the south of the country, but it covered the whole country. So that embolism that they're using, their official logo, is the ICC is the first and only international court with jurisdiction to prosecute individuals for genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of aggression, which are all applicable to the nuclear industry, by the way. And the ICC lacks universal territorial jurisdiction and may only investigate, prosecute crimes committed within member states, crimes committed by nations of the member states, or crimes and situations referred to the courts by the United Nations. Here's the International Criminal Court's official logo. Here's United Nations. It's the same thing, see? Again, we see the military-industrial complex has hoodwinked the planet in increments over 70 years and now has control over the World Health Organization, the World Bank, UNICEF, the ICCC, the IPCC, UNSCLEAR, ERPA, all major worldwide in other words, you can't do anything on the planet normally. You got to go to the military-industrial complex and bend the knee and kiss the ring. France does not want to recognize the horrendous crimes committed in Algeria. And Macron, when he was running for president, came in that he would seek closure for the French Polynesian victims. If you look at actually what France's legacy is, it created a civil war in Niger because Niger has very high-grade uranium. So France created a civil war for over 60 years, destroyed the country, millions and millions of families impoverished and destroyed, so they can get cheap uranium for their carbon-free fable. It's actually despicable. It's humiliating that a country like that actually exists on our planet. French nuclear tests exposed the entire Polynesian population to radiation, a new study has revealed. An irony as the Sahara dust, which Algeria, returns rate where they done nuclear genocide tests because of the radioactive fallout. Even today, the Sahara radioactive dust falls all the way back to France and every country in between, of course. France must clean up the Algerian nuclear test sites, and France must give the Algerian authorities a list of where the contaminated toxic waste is buried. Why won't they tell them where it's friggin' buried? 60 years later, you got any idea the damage to the water tables and the ecosystem now because of that? And then France, of course, recently, in the last couple of years, this was 2019, was giving out millions of iodine pills because they had problems with 6 reactors, expecting one of them to melt down. This is why they gave up all the iodine pills. And if you look at the studies around these reactors, there's a huge discrepancy in males and females' sex ratio, which is emblematic of radiation poisoning, where you have more males than females, which means guaranteed population decrease, and it also means that these people's futures have been changed. This is also going to be applicable to all the animals and insects and birds and mammals too. It's not just humans that are affected by these biological weapons known as nuclear. And environmentalist delusions, why progressive opposition to nuclear energy and crop biotechnology, aka GMO, are the biggest obstacles to addressing climate change. So they're claiming that nuclear and GMO is how we should address. Now, if you think about the legacy of GMO, of course, edible vaccine inventor jokes about culling the population with GMO virus. culling the population, which is what we see going on right now with the coronavirus scamdemic. These are all senators who voted no to labeling GMO in the United States. And I can't remember specifically what year that was, 2015 maybe? I can't remember. But you can see some people said yes, but the majority of them said no, don't label. This is a Canadian TV clip about a debate where they had a child, an actual child, and to do a public debate. Somebody who knows nothing about life.
One danger that you'd face is we would just become immune to that label. We would accept that it's everywhere.
When you play it backwards, it says, "We are magic people." Imagine us doing this mocking. Let's play that one more time. One of the dangers.
One danger that you'd face is we would just become immune to that label. We would accept that it's everywhere.
So one of the dangers of labeling GMO is we become immune to the label versus not becoming aware that there's GMO. But when you play it backwards, I was totally shocked. And that's not normal for me to play anything backwards, but I thought that was really weird the way they framed it. So that was bizarre for a single sentence. We are magic people. It's very distinct, isn't it? And then they show you this picture of GMO and nuclear. It's like, oh my God. And joint people. Look. In a recent Netflix smash hit, Don't Look Up, scientists, which is about a meteorite coming at the planet, and that everybody is pretending there's no meteorite coming to the planet. Everybody's pretending there's no meteorite coming towards the planet. Come on, Dana, get on with it. Wait for it. I'll get there. It always takes me a few seconds. Hang on. What the hell is that? I got no idea what I got done there. Oh, there it is. Because I for years and years and years, I said, imagine if Fukushima was like a meteorite coming at the planet, and everybody looked up and looked at it and said, no, there's no meteorite. No meteorite. Now there's a movie saying that exact same thing. I've been saying this for years and years. We should treat Fukushima as if it's a meteorite coming at the planet. But I used to always say, imagine though, because people would pretend it didn't exist, right? So if you subscribe, click the bell. I don't know if that'll actually work because I'm censored so much, right? And remind you, hi to everybody worldwide. Apologize for being on YouTube, but it's the one platform that works on all devices really well. And you know, one way to help me, if you start up different social networking sites than Facebook or Twitter or stuff like that, and just randomly put some of this stuff out there. The Hulk is not going to fix things. Spider-Man is not going to fix it. Batman or and krypton, with kryptonite, and krypton, which is nuclear, of course. All the superheroes have now displaced the real heroes in children's eyes. So parents can no longer be heroes because you can't compete with all of these, on purpose, by the way, all of these fables, right? These were all created, including GoPro Hero. Imagine naming your camera a hero. And so you know that distorts the children's view of a hero. Even Guitar Hero. And then the heroes are King Kong and dinosaurs. So you denigrate the families by doing stuff like that. So it's obviously not an accident. When the despairing scientists urge people to look up, the defiant answer, don't look up, becomes the rallying cry of the comet denialists. So that narrative was an allegory for climate change, is what they're now saying. I don't see that anywhere in the movie when I watched it. Because when movies like that come out, I have to watch it, right? All of this, of course, is a rather obvious and heavy-handed allegory for our current climate predicament, which is not. It's 100% not. It's not obvious at all because I watched it, and I didn't have those connotations. One climate science. That article about GMO and nuclear, of course, is the same newspaper longtime climate activist George Monbiot, who denied that Fukushima melted down even today. Solving climate change is mostly a matter of facing reality, breaking the power of the fossil fuel. But climate change is caused by nuclear. Obviously, very obviously. And so this model is only a 20-day model of the radioactive fallout covering most of the planet. If you actually let the model continue to run, it covers the rest of the planet. It's energy, pure, and a cloud covering the entire planet, pulsing at the speed of light, 186,000 miles a second, pulsing energy every second for millions of years. And they've been releasing this stuff into the environment, like all the nuclear testing, for starters, was madness. It was utter madness. Some of the nuclear tests, so-called tests, were equal to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs going off at the one time, which was the Soviet Union's biggest bomb. It was equal to 3,800 Hiroshima bombs going off at the same time. It's the same radioactive fallout as a war. It doesn't matter if you use a peace or war or accidental. It's going to be the same radioactive fallout. Solving climate change, climate skepticism, tackle climate change, Constipated Party Conference. We covered that for 13 videos last year. It started on Halloween and ended 13 days later, appropriately. 62% of the participants agreed that climate change at the COP26 conference. 62% of the participants agreed it was climate change. And this is social engineering, basically. Climate activists, well, not basically, it is. Climate crisis, climate denialists, climate targets, climate progress, climate activists, decarbonization. As it happens, there's a few industrial countries that have already achieved an almost complete decarbonization of their electricity sector. So this narrative all came out in 2015 from scumbag France. If you exclude those with unique geographical advantages like Norway or Iceland, which benefit greatly from hydropower or geothermal, you will find that all of them did so by relying heavily on nuclear energy. But nuclear energy can't decarbonize anything. It's emitting endless radiation for millions that pulses energy for millions of years. It is climate change. Gas, oil, and coal emissions don't pulse energy every second for millions of years, and they don't produce plumes that covers the entire planet. It's social engineering done in increments over decades and accelerated in the last 7 years through the Paris Accord. Global warming, climate problems, decarbonization, global warming, climate change. It is because anti-nuclear environmentalists, pro-life environmentalists, pro-life humans who care about the 8 million species, the very same people who expressed the highest level of anxiety about climate change. Those narratives are directly from the social engineering groups, have more political clout in Germany than in France, and have convinced their political leaders that it's an excellent climate policy to abandon atomic energy and close down all their remaining reactors. Really? First off, the president of Germany was a nuclear scientist and decided to close down the reactors because Germany was buried in radioactive fallout from Fukushima, but also from 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl and every other nuclear event. But Fukushima was the straw that broke Germany's camel's backs. Climate change has not appeared on the horizon yet, but also because less was known about the environmental impacts of nuclear waste and accidents known to be rather small, which is again, right? And then they followed that up with the health impact of coal plants now known to be absolutely huge. But to say that you don't know about, like they've been trying to do Yucca Mountain for decades and decades and decades because they know. They have special tanks buried in the ground at Hanford for 50 years because they know how dangerous it is. They were dumping it in the Tetra River from Mayak because they know how dangerous it is. And the list just keeps going. To claim that they don't know and that they only found out now is absurd. And the problem with nuclear waste is it's still splitting the atoms. And about the environmental health impact of coal plants. What a scumbag whoever wrote this article. In country after country, like people who write articles like that should be arrested. They should be jailed minimum of 10 years at hard labor in a foreign country, preferably. Planned projects for nuclear power plants were cancelled because of public opposition. More than 120 in the US alone. Now, they cancelled the nuclear power plants in the United States for many reasons. Rocky Flats was a major reason. 3 Mile Island was a major reason because they hid the true devastation of it. And that they hid Santa Susana, for instance, for 59 years, or since 1959, when it melted down. That produced apparently 460 times more radioactive fallout than 3 Mile Island. But yet they tell you 3 Mile Island is the worst accident. But 3 Mile Island, the studies show over 2 million people got severely dosed, but they claimed that it was harmless to them. It was like watching color television for an extra year. And whoever produced that study should be arrested. And if they're dead, they should be dug up and arrested. Mostly led by the environmentalist movement, fueled by fear-mongering. Climate scientists was created to promote nuclear energy, by the way. Most environmentalists have been unwilling to give up their old fight against nuclear energy. Even young climate activists like Greta Thunberg has chilled the European Commission for finally planning to include nuclear energy in its green taxonomy. Right, so they love using kids. Remember the GMO clip earlier where they just had a little child there for a public debate, and they use Greta for public debates because she doesn't know anything about this industry whatsoever. She only knows what she sees on Twitter. You also need energy when the sun is not shining, the wind is not blowing. So they're alluding to wind and solar. But if you use wind and solar compared and with geothermal, which is 24 hours a day guaranteed energy, and tidal power, which is guaranteed 24 hours a day energy, and also pumped hydro, which is pumping water up a hill with excess power, and compressed air storage, which is big mine shafts where you compress air down there as storage. You have unlimited resources now. You have unlimited, incredible unlimited, and constant peak power. You got peak power 24 hours a day. So like wind and solar needs to be complemented with 4 other useful facets, which is the geothermal, the tidal power, the pumped hydro storage, and compressed air storage. Problem solved. That's the solution, obviously. Because you also need energy when the sun is not shining, the wind is not blowing. They won't come up with a solution because they can't use that narrative no more, see? And if they come up with pumped storage and compressed air for wind and solar, then goodbye oil, gas, coal anyway, because by 2026, the International Energy Agency said there'd be 4,800 gigawatts of renewables on the planet, which is equal to 5,500 nuclear power plants when you scale it up. Not all nuclear power plants are 1,000 or a gigawatt, right? By no means. The only technology can replace a coal or gas plant is nuclear power. Again, because you see all these connotations of climate scientists, that's their motive. Climate scientist was created specifically to promote nuclear power. It's an insidious, hateful, despicable, coward industry. Climate denialists, climate challenge, climate science, climate change, climate activism, climate disaster, anti-nuclear countries. No, the whole countries are not anti-nuclear. It's people that are anti-nuclear. In Finland, even the Green Party has come around to nuclear energy. So the Green Party was taken over or seeded by the nuclear industry. Climate activists, climate change, climate anti-nuclear movement, climate change. So you can see how their narratives are based around this climate propaganda. That's climate propaganda. Let me just run through how many times you use the word. It's absurd, isn't it? Let's count it. I'm smurfed up here. 1, 2, climate. I'll go short ones. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, not 7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Decarbonization is the same thing, 14. We'll just say 14. Global warming is 15. Climate problems 16. Decarbonization. Global warming 17. 18. Fear mongering 19. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 times in a single article. That's brainwashing. That's such a coward thing to do. McEleny slams council support for nuclear power plant. Well, that's actually a fusion plant they were talking about. They don't even mention it in the story, by the way. Chris McEleny blasted the local authorities backing for the proposed project in North Ayrshire, which is, they have a nuclear power plant there that is surrounded by farms. He's like, I see no benefit whatsoever to the people signing up to support a new, interested, untested nuclear technology when the future is clearly electricity powered by renewables. And in the comments section was all pro-nuclear comments, turning his nose up at fusion tech. Fusion is clean and safe. Wonder how his breach of peace case a few months ago is coming along. Nuclear fusion is the holy grail. The French are leading the race to harness it. It's the future. And what is the alternative for poor if energy prices keep rising? Freeze nuclear is an option that must be explored because all those renewables, windmills, are not bringing the prices down. When in reality is the grid is designed for nuclear, not for renewables. But the comment section is revolting, yeah? Nuclear Medicine Center in the Philippines. Like, the worst thing you can do is radiate a human or any species. You can't cure people with radiation. And he claimed now that radiation can be used to treat a variety of diseases, not just cancer. Will be more affordable and reachable to the common impoverished Filipino people. Is probably the most frightening statement imaginable. United States B-52 nuclear bombers take off from UK as Europe is on the brink of war and Russia could invade within days. Hey, how many suicide bombers does it take to equal one of those planes or the aircraft carrier, I wonder? 1 billion? 2 nuclear-capable B-52 idiot machines have taken off from a base in the United Kingdom for a night mission across Europe because the United Kingdom is too stupid. The military is too stupid and the United Kingdom build their own bombers. Europe is inching closer to World War III, hours by hour. 2 nuclear-capable idiot machines have taken off from a base for a night mission across Europe. 2 nuclear-capable bombers were visibly seen on public available flight radar data. So anybody can track the aircrafts. That's the definition of morons. That's the definition of the stupidest thing imaginable. That's meant so the media can constantly report on it to whip up the frenzy. Putin said that he talks with his French counterparts, scumbag, and Putin, of course, is a dictator at this stage, a lunatic, really. Both his parents worked for Stalin during the genocide. They claimed that he told a press conference there would be a nuclear war if Ukraine joined NATO. There will be a nuclear war. How come you won't have just a normal war? Why does it have to be a nuclear war? Why say that? Because that don't make no sense to say that. Well, we'll nuke him if he doesn't. Well, what are you talking about? The Russian dictator said, I want to stress it one more time. I've been saying it, but I very much want you to finally hear me and deliver it to your audience in print, and TV, and online. It'll be a nuclear war. Well, the first thing you need to nuke if you're going to nuke him back is wherever the frig he's to and get rid of him. The B-52 bombers, and of course I don't advocate using nuclear, and I advocate the people that promote nuclear should be put in a rocket and shot into the sun. The B-52 bombers still carry nuclear weapons and nuclear cruise missiles, but you can track them on an app. Anybody can get access to it. Yes, nuclear engineering. It's not nuclear engineering, it's a lobbyist. Mayak to begin remediations, which is the former Soviet Union, by the way, of the V-17 storage reservoir for liquid rad waste. Liquefied waste, which is still splitting the atom. Russia's Production Association, Mayak. Formerly, it was the Soviet Union's. It was established in 1940, produced plutonium for the Soviet nuclear industry and had multiple detonations, multiple meltdowns, had decades of dumping it into the Tetra River, where it flowed down past 7,500 communities, and the majority of them are permanently evacuated. This was exacerbated in 1957 by an explosion at the waste tank. It was another. They had multiple accidents. At one point, Mayak had took their waste to a top of a mountain because water would pull their. Excuse me. So water at the top of a mountain, old not abandoned, but non-active volcano, and they put their nuke, and still there today, in that. And then, of course, they ended up having a drought, and because there's no water going into it, which is why they put it there, they claimed, and then they had a drought and it contaminated over 1,000 square miles, where they dumped fuel, just in an outdoor pond that was perpetually filled because of high altitude. U.S. nuke tests, now of course, it contaminated 1,000 square miles away around it, which meant it contaminated the entire planet. U.S. nuke tests no different to genocide of the native tribes. They have 15,000 abandoned uranium mines in Navajo, for goodness sakes. Human rights. Well, I mean, like if Russia nukes Ukraine, Russia's nuking Russia, right? It's the same thing. It's like America nuking Canada or Canada nuking America. Not that Canada has nuclear weapons that I know about. All the radiation comes back on you. If you look at France, what they've done to Algeria, the Sahara Desert, all that radiation gets carried back to France, which is far, far away compared to Ukraine and Russia, right? Human rights. We always had horses. My grandfather told me, stop kicking up dust. Now I understand that it was because of the radioactive fallout. The Shuho Native American tribe have long been considered the most bombed nation on Earth. Well, yeah, I guess so. As their sacred land was turned into a U.S. nuclear weapons testing site. Today, the devastating effects of the U.S. ambition in the nuclear arms race was the Soviet Union. During the Cold War, continued to victimize generations of Native American tribes. The testing program killed thousands, most likely tens of thousands, and left the rest of them with nuclear-related cancers and up to 1,800 illnesses and diseases, and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. The only official document reporting the health and safety information regarding the nuclear testing comes from the U.S. Department of Energy, the degenerate Department of Energy, which still remains classified 60 to 70 years later. For the U.S. government, the land was regarded as a prime site, which is the natives' land, for nuclear testing, which also perfectly served its purpose of racial cleansing, which is 100% accurate. There are test series with specific goals to expose humans to radiation, which we've talked about and shown many times over the years, where like even the soldiers were part of that kind of a test where they were told to sit with their back to the nuclear explosion and then walk towards ground zero as the fireball was still rising in the sky. And then they were denied recognition for 60 to 70 years. The affected tribal residents received no official compensations. The nuclear holocaust of the Shoshone Navajo tribes have become, Navajo is not their real name, right? That's the name given to them by the degenerate military-industrial complex, has become an undeniable reality of the U.S. government's systemic human rights abuses against Native Americans. Yeah, the Native Americans, native everywhere around the world, have been poisoned by industries on purpose worldwide. It's just incredible hatred for the natives who've done nothing to them. It's outrageous. It really is outrageous what they've done to the natives. It's heartbreaking. Danger from America's nuclear power plants. Fake spare parts were installed. And nobody really knows how big the problem is, but it's soon to be right across the entire industry. The Atomic City Girls is no small feat, which is a book out. I got no idea because I didn't read the book. Everyone pays a loafer's wages. You with hard work, your sons and brothers with lives. That was the Department of Energy sign at the Manhattan Project Gate. What a bizarre, twisted, sadistic group of people they turned out to be, eh? Really demons, actually. One of the defining moments of the 20th century, the dropping a little boy on Hiroshima, which is uranium, and Fat Man, which was a plutonium on Nagasaki, which came out after. They didn't need to do it. Japan had already capitulated and surrendered. They just wanted to use it to intimidate other countries worldwide. Today we live with the results, and mostly civilian, right? The majority of the people killed were civilians. Even though they claimed that it wasn't targeting civilian, how you hit a city full of civilians, how can it not be targeting civilians? It's not doublespeak, it's evil. Today we live with the results of that undertaking: nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl, decaying uranium storage in Hanford. Hanford is 585 square miles of nuclear waste. It's not decaying uranium storage. Washington and the still looming thoughts of nuclear winter, which is a fable created by two people who wrote a paper, and Hollywood and the media seized up on it for fear-mongering. Barry hints at the way the bombing of Japan was used to pull America together by declaring a common enemy at the end of the war. And they used to call them the Japs, right? I got all kinds of headlines from that era, and literally none of them mentions the word Japan or Japanese. They all calls them the Japs, or slant eyes, or some derogatory. Einstein, disguised as Robin Hood with his memories in a trunk, passed this way an hour ago with his friend, a jealous monk. Now he looks so immaculately frightful as he bummed a cigarette, and he went off sniffing drain pipes and reciting the alphabet. You would not think to look at him, but he was famous long ago for playing the electric violin on Desolation's Row. Because this was about the atomic bomb, Einstein's E equals MC squared, by Bob Dylan's. But I don't know, the book, you can always glean something from this stuff, whether it's bigoted, racist, or prejudiced, or biased, or whether it's honest and frightfully truthful, which is, it's out there, but it's extremely rare to find the truth. It's unbelievably, it's almost impossible if you don't know what you're doing. And look at the struggles we've had with finding the truth. And these shows, unfortunately, you're talking about the daily 24-hour news cycle. And it could be 190 stories. You can't cover 190 stories in these presentations, even though I have. But all you can do is cover the headline and then have a blurp, blurp, and then move on to the next headline due to the time constraints, right? And so how's the poll going tonight? We got nobody on the show tonight, 18 people. So censored heavily tonight, 17 people. We got 35 likes, which is amazing with 17 people. We got 35 votes, which is amazing with 17 people. And we got the right votes. Should Japan let independent experts visit the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns? And apparently that's a crime. Doing this show for a decade, and I only got 18 people on my show. 19 people. Whatever. Even if nobody's on the show, I still got to do the show, don't I? Because I can't sleep at night if I don't come out and curb stomp the despicable, cowardly nuclear industry, the idiot, moron, dummies that work for it, the bootlicking lapdogs, brain-dead scumbags that work for the nuclear industry. One of the defining moments of the 20th century, the dropping a little boy in Hiroshima. We already covered that, Dana. Ukraine crisis, removing Sheffield nuclear drama threads from BritBox is meaningless compared to the threat of war. This was an interesting story. Streaming service BritBox, which is kind of like Netflix, say, right? Or a streaming service, deleted a tweet announcing the Sheffield nuclear apocalypse drama Tread. That was the name of a 1986 movie. Was Treads, Threads, was available to stream on the site. Now the show has been removed also. So they removed the show from the streaming site and the tweet that it was available, so that people wouldn't protest the United Kingdom's participation in the Russia-Ukraine, which is a big distraction, really. Because if they do it, it was planned as part of the COVID, right? If that's what's happening, if they actually go ahead and nuke Ukraine, don't put nothing past these people. They've already slow killed around 4 billion people on the planet. With the coronavirus fable, is the radioactive fallout from Fukushima is the reason they're doing it. I have no doubt they released a virus. Zero doubts about it. We actually done 59 presentations on coronavirus when it happened, because we always felt that they would accidentally or purposely release a biological weapon. It looks like they... Now it looks like it, but it's 100% certain this is what they done. And this was to cover up the Fukushima event that we had on this planet. Let me explain that very quickly. And this model is from France, and this model shows you the radioactive fallout, a 16-day model of radioactive fallout, just 16 days. So in 16 days, the whole planet is covered in radioactive fallout. This is stunning. And you can't be in the fallout zone and not get sick. You can't be in the fallout zone and not have your water tables permanently poisoned. And that this is not innocuous or benign or harmless. This is brutal and vicious and sadistic, and was done obviously on purpose. They have never. That's why we have a poll tonight. should Japan let independent experts visit the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns? Because nobody independently has ever visited the nuclear meltdowns 11 years later almost. Next month is 11 years. Oh, but, so the anniversary is coming up. Are they going to delete my channel this year, I wonder? So this is a screen capture from the movie Threads. Delivery partner's name for cleanup of West Columbia's nuclear site. That's a really strange thing to say because they're talking about Sellafield. And look at Sellafield. What's wrong with this picture? It should be obvious to anybody who'd never even been to this topic before that surrounding a weapons facility with farms is insane. Is insane. That's insane. That's the definition of incredibly evil, because all the food at the farms is shipped to victims, and they are poisoned by eating the food 2,500 miles away, 5,000 miles away, 10,000 miles away. Wherever the food goes, disease, death follows. The key delivery partners have been named for the second set of Sellafield new integrated delivery team model covering essential work packages and the cleanup of the West Columbia's nuclear site, again, which is Sellafield. Sellafield. EDF, which is the French government, said there was an unexpected power failure at another French reactor. France is already having to import power because all their multiple reactors have broken down in the last 12 months, are still offline. Now they got another one going offline. America B-52 bombers spotted flying over Ukraine. Over Cornwall amid Ukraine tensions. So they're conflating it. Even though it's in Cornwall, they're suggesting that nuclear bombs are in the sky because of Russia and Ukraine. Despite the fact you can track them on a phone app. Like if that was real, you wouldn't be able to track it on a phone app because Russia doesn't know how to do a phone. And they actually give you a rundown, step by step, of where the planes pass through. Yes, Russia's shaking in their boots, I'm sure. The B-52s have been used for heavy bombing missions, for genocide missions. How many suicide bombers does it take to equal one of these B-52s? Everything throughout history still can't touch a B-52. Every suicide bomber in history can't compare to a B-52 single bombing mission. But also are capable of carrying nuclear stupid. Working to improve cancer cure. Well, if that was true, you would use DCA. You would sell it in drinking water, bottles of drinking water. Get your DCA bottle of drinking water, $1.15, cure your cancer. Buy a dozen bottles and kill the cancer. The pure DCA is what I would use. And the studies showed it, and you can buy it on Amazon.com, not .ca, but .com. And in fact, if you're in America, you can walk in any pharmacy with a compound chemist and they can make it on site. Most pharmacies in the United States will have it right across the shelf. Just walk in and get it. You don't need a prescription for it. It's just a mineral. It's like getting, except it's not popular because they hid it away from the population. But a Canadian professor discovered it killed all cancers. And they couldn't get funding to do human trials from the universities or the government. They had to get it privately. Working to prove cancer cure. Yeah? By what? Oh, nuclear. working to kill the cancer victims is what the headline should say. Evil, despicable Belleville, Ontario, Canada. Despicable scum. Fukushima man returns home, wants to tell son about his errors. Now he brings his son to Fukushima, which is just a couple of kilometers from the ongoing multiple nuclear meltdowns. So they don't have a concept. Right there in Fukushima, planting flowers, showing them we can't go over there. Now, 10% of the town will be opened next year. And they don't expect to get the rest of it open. But 10% of the town will be open. The rest of it's too radioactive to cross the street. Taking your children to a town that is incredibly radioactive is an error. Is an incredible error. Hi, everybody. The town where Onuma in his youth dreamed up a slogan promoting the bright future, the nuclear power promise remains deserted and a shell of its former self. So he's the guy who came up with that slogan right there. And now he brings his children into a nuclear wasteland where just breathing in, and these masks they're wearing can't stop radiation. You need a bioweapons mask and a full protective suit, and you still probably can't stop it. He's hoping to pass along a different message to his sons of the danger of nuclear power. This is the strangest story imaginable. You bring your children into a nuclear wasteland, and you're planning on staying there overnight. So the media found someone extremely gullible, the Japanese media, and then used that, weaponized that. The district is designated a difficult to return zone where an evacuation order remains in place because of high levels of radiation. They call it a triple, you see all the media will do that where they call it a triple meltdown. It was 4 reactors melted down and 8 fuel pools with decades of reactor cores in each one melted down. It's not on purpose, but how can you not have contempt for a media that consistently lies and puts everybody and the entire future of all species in jeopardy? Plymouth rally against radioactive waste dump gains bipartisan support. So this is where Holtec, a new decommissioning organization of them, they want to do it cheaper and quicker. So their solution to do it cheaper and quicker is to dump the radioactive water into the bay. By the way, it's really interesting because you don't mention they got ALP systems or an Arriva filtration system, do they? No, they're going to dump it in the bay. And the ALPS and the filtration system simply doesn't work, as I showed you earlier, which is no doubt why I'm censored heavily tonight, plus the B-52 bombers and everything else. To push against the idea of potentially dumping radioactive water in the Cape Cod Bay, which is absurd. But it shows you the contempt from the nuclear industry, this incredible contempt, this incredible hatred of everybody and everything. To push to stop the radioactive water from the decommissioned, it's not decommissioned, it'll take 60 to 100 years to decommission the site, being dumped in Cape Cod Bay. But bless their hearts for trying, for saying, for getting out there and at least yelling, right? Thank goodness. It's an outrageous approach, is right. Kelly Trice, the president of Holtec, Decommissioning International, because they want to do it in all countries worldwide. Just go in, dump everything they can in landfills, recycle everything they can when people are not paying attention, and dump liquids into the ocean. Would be in small batches and have very little or no impact on the environment, which is absurd to suggest because it's going to last for 1 million years. How can you make a statement like that when you know it's going to last 1 million years, Kelly? You little C. IAEA delegation is United Nations. And United Nations is 193 military degenerate scumbag countries. These are scumbags. If they work for the IAEA, they're scumbags. If they work for the United Nations, there's no maybes about it. These are child molesters, murderers, and degenerate scumbags. The international scumbags, known as IAEA, will travel to Japan. First off, they've never went to the nuclear meltdowns. Why did he wait 11 years? Second off, it's been running out of there. If you fill up the tanks with the 2.2 sieverts per hour minimum, they're only talking about beta, they're not talking about gamma, alpha, or neutrons, by the way, then the tanks are 1.4 million sieverts. 10 sieverts is a lethal dose almost right away. So what the frig is 1.4 million sieverts? It's a lethal dose from a mile away. And so if you build one of these tanks and fill it up, you can't filter it because the filter now is a lethal dose. You can never change the filter. And then after a few hours, if you just run fresh water through the filter, for 1 million years, the water coming out the other side is going to be lethal doses by the liter. Because that's how radiation works. And decommission. I literally want to go up to grab these people by the hair of their head and then pull their shirts over their head like you do in hockey and start feeding them uppercuts. But I'm old, right? And I can't do stuff like that. And I'm not even healthy enough to swing on somebody anyway. But I still want to, because these are despicable, disgusting parasites. Fukushima power plant. Yeah, 11 years ago it was a power plant. The Japanese government called the agency to assist them in monitoring the safety. Really? The Japanese government waited 11 years to bring in the perpetual lawyers known as United Nations. Well, whoopee-doo, man. Experts. What? Geraldine Thomas? Maintained that the treatment of the contaminated water will successfully reduce all isotopes to a minimal level except for tritium. And as I showed you earlier, from the documentation, this is simply ludicrous to suggest. It's evil, you sacks of shit that are doing it. I catch any, I'll kick your teeth down your throats. Not that I can kick you in the head anymore, I'm an old man, but in my mind, I will kick your teeth down your throat if I see you. Encore Energy receives uranium production license for Dewey Burdock, South Dakota. That's kind of depressing. Not kind of, this is actually depressing. Astronomers observe rare stellar wedding. Why don't you take these people that are doing this, these incredible degrees, unbelievable pedigree, unimaginable wealth, unimaginable amount of equipment, and send them down to Fukushima and come up with some solutions. And if you took these astronomers down to Fukushima, they'd claw the eyes out of your head, from the back of your head, right through there, get your eyes and clawed out before you'll get them into Fukushima. They'd be screaming, no! No! These are, like, they do this because they're the inbreeds of inbreeds. Chinese and Taiwan trade pacts bids on the CPTP. So Taiwan just randomly took all measures of banned food from Japan and threw it out the window so they can draw in a trade pact. So you're going to poison everybody in the country so you might be able to join a trade pact. I don't understand why Taiwan doesn't arrest all of you immediately and prosecute you for crimes against humanity in Taiwan and execute you publicly for what you're doing. These people should be who allowed all the food without no checks that are going to be done by real people. It's going to be done by the nuclear scumbag industry. So no checks to come into the country and poison people who don't know any better. So they can maybe join a trade pact. I've seen fistfights break out in Taiwan's parliament over a minuscule thing. This warrants a real fistfight in parliament every day for the next 10 years. Taiwan's application to join a massive shit-for-brain trade deal is expected to be discussed by the bloc commissions. What we should do is prepare ourselves as much as we can to increase our chances of joining the CPTPP, Deng said. The conditional removal of a ban on Fukushima food imports by the government randomly last week proves we are fucking murderers. Excuse the language. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. It's even more outrageous that they're not arrested and thrown off a fucking skyscraper. Excuse the language. It's time to abolish the family. Yeah, why not? The nuclear family. The whole system is so corrupt, it's just bizarre. Scientists can't agree about Chernobyl's impact on wildlife. They do the same thing every time they show you foxes or beak animals, right? Migratory animals. They closed 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom because of Chernobyl. But Ground Zero now is fine, Dana. And that's no... They still got 400 farms closed in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, 3,000 miles away. You still can't eat the fish in Sweden from the freshwater ponds because they're still too radioactive. But hey, everything at Chernobyl is fine, Dana. Don't ever come up to my face and say something like that, because I can guarantee you I'll pull the ears right off your fucking head right on the spot. Not that I'm capable of it, I'm an old broken man. Right, old pharmaceuticals in nuclear medicine market. So if you don't like somebody, you get them to get chemotherapy. Right? If you want to kill somebody, you give them chemotherapy. If you... It's such a despicable, evil, disgusting group that does that. There's such disgusting, despicable people that uses radiation on humans. They're criminals. They're crimes against humanity. Using radiation on humans is crimes against humanity. And eating food from around nuclear power plants within 1,000 miles of it, certainly within proximity to it, is crimes against humanity. Do you really think it's an accident that all of these nuclear power plants are built surrounded by farms? This is a future one the United Kingdom size will be built surrounded by farms. Do you think that's an accident? Do you really think that's an accident? Even this one here is going to be surrounded by farms as far as you can see. Do you think it's an accident the farmer is harvesting food by 1-ton bags of radiation for the market in Japan? Do you think it's an accident that 14 prefectures were banned by 55 countries, not just Fukushima, even though they never mention that? They typically only mention Fukushima. Do you think that's an accident? No, that's the evil, coward, degenerate, scum, incredible scumbag known as nuclear. That's what it is. And what was the thumbnail tonight? Bear with me. I didn't show that, and I always like to show the thumbnail on the bike screen just for people later. Rain with 20 million particles of radioactive iodine 131 per liter of rainfall fell on the United States during post-Fukushima peak. So we had a big snowstorm today. We shoveled snow twice, which was pointless because it's still snowing. It's going to snow all day tomorrow. All night tonight. So snow's really stacking up out there when I came in, but it's still snowing. Joe Moore's 239 joints says, Dana, it's no accident. Genocide at the conception of nuclear technology is 100% correct. Quick shout out to everybody. That's a good flower pot idea. It actually is, right? But it's just scary, the whole thought of it. Fake snow. Blue Jay Outpost, Richard McCann, Dana Nasana, Chelsea. No, I hear you, Chelsea. You're most likely right. James Lucid. Tree Fruit. Good night, everybody. James Megan, Thinker, Peaceware. Let me do a quick shout out for everybody that happens to be in the chat room. Hugs for everybody else everywhere. God bless all of you. Corca D. Got a few spammers in tonight. The VUM. I'll put them in the ban word list after the show because that's just spam, right? That's how we get rid of the spammers. You have a list where you can block certain words. And we use that for the spammers, from the professional spammers. Never go to those sites. We go up to the top, we'll come back down. Sunariad, Eloft, thank you. I'll check my email. I know Lori was wanting to do something. We haven't seen her since. Colette S. Ella. Good night, everybody. Turn that music up a little bit. Catcha. Yeah, happy Valentine's Day for people. Fukushima and Revelations. So we had dismal views on our video tonight. Obviously, this one was censored. Vin's Web. I'm almost through the comments because I went up for a while. Tommy Time Television. Stupid military, man. The military is so stupid. You get paid shitty wages, can't even quit your job, and you got to commit genocides and rapes and murders. It's stupid. Go get a real job, morons. Murdering our planet is not a job. It's a coward and evil thing to do. Okay, we'll come down to the most recent comments. Good night, everybody. Just double checking. Looks like we got everybody. If I missed any names, I always seem to miss one or two. Because it's a random thing, right? Really, even though I do it all the time, it's still a random thing to come in and say good night to the comments section. And good night to everybody else that is watching later and at the same time. We have a poll has found its way up to 39 votes. 97% of people think that Japan should let independent experts visit the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. We only got 23 people on the show. We got 42 likes. How does that work? They got to be censored, right? They don't want anybody to have a conversation about anything anymore. Unless you regurgitate their narrative, they're terrified of you. That's what cowards do, right? You know they're cowards when they do stuff like that. We're not cowards, and we're not afraid of cowards. And we'll never be afraid of cowards. We are here to go to war for you and your friends and your families and your loved ones and the 8 million species on this planet and the people who don't know any better. We are here to educate those who are trying to learn and entertain those who just don't give a fuck. Like me and you, most likely. Have a great night, great day tomorrow, all. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Stay out of the rain, stay out of the snow. Because nuclear destroyed that too on us. Way to go, scumbag nuclear. You shit for brain, despicable cowards. God bless and hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night, folks. Great day tomorrow. Take care.
Ja.